All right. We don't normally start just right off the bat. That's just something that we've decided a long time ago when we first started streaming on Twitch that we were going to start with a timer, and usually that timer lasts between 5 and 10 minutes. Clinic Hours specifically has always had a 10-minute start timer, and in fact, the music tracks that we've selected at the beginning, so the 3 that play here, they're the ones, all 3 of them add up to 10 minutes. Thing is, we've been discovering that our pre-game banter, which is what we usually do here on Sundays, tends to go overboard. And when it goes overboard, that becomes a problem for us. It's just an issue that we run into when there's just too much that's that we have to talk about, stuff that we want to do, and then we don't actually start playing until we're, a little bit in. And I don't particularly like that. I would much prefer to have a bit more time to play, but also that kind of opening banter sort of matters a lot for us. We do it a lot. We kind of do it so that we settle in. We do it just because, we enjoy talking with ourselves, with talking with you and all of that. So we're trying this out where we're going to see what happens if we don't have that opening. And instead we just start. We start cold, we start the banter right away, and we just get ready to start the game at closer to when we are supposed to start, which is at 2 p.m. Eastern. So Requiem, hi, by the way. That's why what we're probably going to do is instead of starting the game, starting the stream at, say, 1:55 and then having a kind of a loading situation where we wait for 5 minutes before we actually go live, that instead we'll actually just go live. And so that also will help a bit, because then when somebody decides to watch the video back, it'll be a bit easier for them to sort of get started right away, because the banter will start right away. So these are things that we are thinking about, that we are considering. And so the thing about Clinic Hours is that Clinic Hours is always better when there's more audience, when the audience is participating, when they're in and ready and right there. So that's why we typically have that 10-minute countdown. The thing is, I'd just rather hang out with people. So it's what we're trying today. But we'll actually start the game itself, or not necessarily the game. Music come down a touch, chat window seems a bit off the edge onto the white line. Okay, checking this. Reducing that. And let's move. Oh, the chat is definitely in a weird position here. Why are you so small? The chat is so tiny. It is not going to fill up this screen. I'm going to have to expand it. It might have, yeah. But thankfully, this is something that I can actually fix. So we're going to put you up here. There we go. Makes it a little better, I think. A little easier to deal with. I mean, if you had a nickel, I'm sure that you'd be glad to have the nickel. But I'm wondering how this is just gonna go down, because the other thing is, specifically for Clinic Hours, we don't really have banter as much because it's me. It's just me and, well, you out there in chat. So we'll see if people show up, because also this is a stream that's happening. It was a bit of a last minute call. We were going to play Datafall today, as we do normally on Sundays, but unfortunately we had players who could not make the game. And as a result, I just didn't feel like running a session with fewer players. Sometimes we'll do that. We'll run a session with 2 players. Sometimes we even run one-on-one sessions. And while that is definitely something that's possible, for Datafall specifically, where we're at in the campaign, I didn't really want to do that, especially with short notice. So instead we're doing this. And it made me think, oh, well, I can't always have the players here present. So that made me think of the topic, but we'll get into that in a few minutes when it's 2 o'clock and people are more likely to be coming on in. But if you are here, just drop a note in chat. Would love to hear from you. But we'll see how you feel. But I can always have safety tools. Did it sound like a segue to this? Somewhat. Yeah, we have safety tools. Just go on rpgclinic.com/safety. Go find our safety tools there. They're free to download for you to use. If you want them, we have links to 2 card stores, one for the United States and one for everyone else in the world, where you can order versions of these cards that are printed. If you order from Make Plain Cards, they come in plastic, which is nice. We don't charge anything extra on top of it. It's just the cost of manufacture and shipping out. We don't make a profit off these. We just like having them, and hopefully they will be handy for your games as well. So Requiem says, I feel like when you do sessions with less 1 or 2 players, you have way more advanced warnings so you can plan accordingly. This felt more last minute. Yeah, you're right. Oftentimes, if we know that a player can't make it, then I can also engineer the story so that it's a bit more cohesive as to why somebody isn't there right off the bat. And I know that plenty of tables are able to do that, where they're just like, okay, well, this person just isn't going to be around for this particular part of the adventure, and especially if it's D&D, then you just adjust a few numbers and then you can keep going as normal. But because our game is so social heavy, and because the story is in a place where kind of everybody is coalescing at this point, they're all moving together as opposed to separately, it felt weird to then just say, okay, well, we're going to change things around now. So, hey, Gil. I am very happy to see you. I am sorry that it is not Datafall today, but you get me at least, and Kate's in chat. I gotta say also for you, Gil, and you, Requiem, we're gonna call this out again on the Datafall streams specifically, but I've been really enjoying looking at your headcanon stuff. I love both of your characters that you've developed there, and I'm hoping that more people will engage with that, and I might start dropping things in there that would be canon, just to encourage people to take a look in there as well. Not anything that would be absolutely required for people, because I don't want to require anybody to go onto the Discord in order to understand, but a couple of things might end up in there just for fun, just to give people a chance to see why it might be cool to talk in headcanon. So in 2 minutes we'll start the conversation proper, but I like things just for fun. See, well, I think that's kind of the definition of this channel, for that matter. Hey, Weirdness, yes, somebody did say secrets, and that is a way to summon people, and I'm sure that helps. But yeah, I am just looking forward to spending a bit of time talking with you. I'm not even sure how long this one's going to last. I just wanted to make sure that there was a stream today for people who might be interested in tuning in. Yeah, Jupiter said secrets. It's funny because I don't associate Jupiter with secrets necessarily based on Sailor Moon. I associate Jupiter with electricity, which is pretty standard, but I also associate Jupiter with the brashness. There wasn't a whole lot of secrets that I remember coming from Sailor Jupiter, but of course this isn't Sailor Moon, so. Headcanon is you can't absolutely go pure ridiculous, and that's kind of the point, right? Like, that's why I specifically made it so that it was set aside and that it was for gods. as opposed to sidereals. Sidereals kind of have a bit more at stake, a bit more kind of affecting in play sort of thing. There are far fewer of them. There's 100 sidereals. So just wanted to make sure that gods, I thought, were going to be more fun for people to come up with their own idea of a minor god, and that they wouldn't necessarily have any way to affect what's going on, but they would still be interested in talking about it. So, hey, Aragorn. Good to see you. Is Pinky packed on today, Aragorn? Please, I should get a red arrow just so that I can like hold it up and. Pinky pack today then. So then that will be, well, we won't run over your time at that point. Pinky pack will be happening at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, just for your own particular. We're currently -4 Universal. New town, new quests. That was one of the things that was a challenge for us that we're hoping to solve with Datafall, is that players like to collect NPCs, but they also need a place to put them, which is why we have a ship. So they can collect their NPCs and put them on the ship, but we can still go to various different towns. So that was the hope, that was the plan. All right. Look, let's get things started. I was going to play today. We were going to play Datafall. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards. One of the things that we are very aware of is that real life has to come first. And real life isn't always just like, oh, well, I have a job interview, or, oh, well, I have a birthday party that I have to go to. Sometimes real life is just even a matter of like, I just don't have it in me to play today. There's so many different reasons why sometimes we'll have to cancel a stream. In this particular case, it's because players couldn't make it here. And if they can't make it here, we have done sort of remote. It's not worth it. Remote games are fine if they're a necessity for us, but the thing is, for the way that we stream, the way that we do things, for the technology that we have integrated here, it's far easier for us to do it if everybody is in person. So that's a reason why we might hesitate. When we used to do remote a lot, we used to do remote because I moved. For almost 2 years, we played remotely. And then during the pandemic, we played remotely. But in this particular case, it was just better to say, we'll take a rest, we'll take a break, we'll move on. Important to note also, though, if you are watching this and you are somebody who watches Datafall, is that in the following 2 weeks, we will be starting an hour earlier. We're starting an hour earlier because we have to finish an hour earlier. So, and that's a real life issue. That's work that we just have to deal with. So in that particular case, just keep an eye out for that. It will all be on the Discord. The events will be planned. It will be ready for you then. So don't worry about that. We will give everybody a chance to find out when it will be in your time zone, but it will be an hour earlier than we normally do it. A Deep Space Nine space setting is actually great for that, right? One big space hub, chaotic journey tunnel nearby, and the fact that, you know, there's no reason why you can't just get on a ship. I mean, look, DS9 literally did this by being like, let's give them the Defiant. So the USS Defiant was a way that they could say, yeah, well, we want to send these people out on some, you know, on a ship. Let them do ship things instead of just station things. So they just gave them that. Deep Space Nine also got better when they imported Worf. So yes, the laughs must be just forward. In Montreal, we actually decided not to participate in the FIFA World Cup. We have other festivals that we have going on here, the Montreal International Jazz Festival and Just for Laughs are two of the big festivals that we run here every year. They draw in a lot of international visitors. And the thing is, if you are doing a FIFA event, you're not allowed to have other events going on at the same time as FIFA. And we were just like, no, we don't want to do that. We also don't want to spend tons and tons of money in order to just fill FIFA coffers. So Montreal is not a host city. Toronto and Vancouver were, but we are not. So instead, we have Just for Laughs. And Just for Laughs has shows that happen. They tend to be later in the day because comedy tends to be popular in the evening, and therefore Kate must go and do work. And as a result, we're going to start an hour earlier. So Yeah, it's the amount of demands that FIFA places on a host city is enormous. And yes, there is some value, I know, in hosting an event, the biggest sporting event every year, or every 4 years, I should say. But I know that our city just wasn't willing to do that, and I am approving of this decision. So, in that case, look, we couldn't play today. It made me realize as I was sitting this morning, figuring out what I was going to do with my day now that I knew that we weren't going to be playing, and I was thinking, well, I can't always have what I want when it comes to this. If I could have what I wanted all the time, then I wouldn't run into any of these problems. I wouldn't have to think about ways to pivot. And that's what we're discussing today. In addition to any of your questions that you may have, obviously, we're totally down. We even have a question that's sitting in our Discord, which I will gladly answer. But I also wanted to discuss today about things that I wish I could do, but because of various different reasons, I can't always have everything that I want. And for you out there in chat, this is twofold. One, it is a way for me to share with you thoughts that I've already had and perhaps give the reasoning as to why I can't or won't do something. Then I also am throwing the gauntlet down for you. If you can help me come up with solutions, or if you can help me come up with ideas that might make this a reality, then it means that these things might actually come to pass. They might become more likely to happen. I can't guarantee everything. And obviously, you do have to convince me that the solution that you have is a solution worth looking into. But I don't want to just say, well, this will never happen and then walk away. I've done that before and been wrong. And today is going to be that way as well. I'm going to throw a couple of wishlist items out here, and it's very possible that in the future, we'll actually get around to being able to do these things. But I do want to say that just because you might want something doesn't mean that I'm not completely ignoring what your wish is. I want you to drop your wishes in here as well. Even if there's things that we've said that we won't do in the past, I want to hear them. I want to hear what your impossible wish list is. Because, after all, one of the things that we make sure of on this channel is we want people to have a good time. And if we don't know what people are enjoying, it's harder for us to do those things. We do have surveys that we pass out every once in a while in order to find out what you're enjoying or what you might be looking forward to, but take this as an informal one today. Just know this. The number one rule that we've always had here, aside from safety, which is kind of rule 0 for us, the number one rule is we do this because we enjoy it. It's fun for us. And that's probably the biggest blocker we have when it comes to doing other things. And having fun isn't necessarily something that you would say, oh, well, that's a big blocker. But in a way, it's a guiding aspect to how we operate this channel and how we operate our games. The reason why we focus on this so much is because the instant that this stops being fun, it's a job. And the instant that it's a job, at that point it changes the entire dynamic around what we're trying to do with this channel and our entire dynamic with the community that we're so lucky that we have. If we're constantly trying to chase the latest trends, constantly trying to get new viewers, trying to grow the channel as opposed to grow our own enjoyment of the channel, then we run risks. We run risks that we're starting to make changes in order to accommodate other people instead of ourselves. None of us do this for a job. None of us want to do this for a job. We don't want to spend hours upon hours editing what we've made. We don't want to spend hours upon hours marketing these things. We don't want to grow so large that then the relationship that we have with the community suffers as a result. What we are interested in doing is having a lot of fun and putting out a product that we think is, our level of acceptable. So, just bear in mind that if, for instance, you come up with a wish list, you come up with an idea and you say, man, I really wish that you would do this, my answer might be pure and simple, because it means that at that point it won't be fun. But it also blocks a lot of the things that I like, the things that I want to do. because fun also involves time. I have a limited amount of time. I have, I had a job up until recently, and now I am going to have a job starting next week, which I'm very thankful for. I can't discuss it at the moment, but it is still in the video games industry, which you may have heard is not a wonderful, happy, fun time for jobs at this point, but we're hoping that that'll turn around. But I do have a limited amount of time, and so does Kate, so does Scott, so does Liz. And as a result, any amount of time that we put into RPG Clinic, it's taken out of our leisure time. So we definitely put work in. We enjoy putting the work in. We like doing it. But it does mean that there's certain amounts of work that we just can't get past. And the first one that I will point out, the amount. Thank you. I'm hoping it'll go well as well. It was rough. It was rough getting the news about the previous project and about my needing to find new work, but I am looking forward to the next chapter, and now it is here. Yes, exactly, KFF. Actual plays, when we first started, we were kind of lucky in that there just weren't as many. Now there are a lot, and a lot of them are popular because they chase trends. I would like to attract more people here, but there are things that we just don't have the aptitude for, or we don't have the time. I would love to be able to provide you with edited streams sometimes. And I don't mean editing, I like the fact that you can see how we interact and how we banter, and I do believe that RPG Clinic has always been more about the players than it is about the game. Even though the game is still, I can get it. People are interested in the game, they're interested in the story that's being told, but I want people to root for Kate and Liz and Scott. I want them to sort of experience what it's like to be with those players moving forward. That's what we're trying to do on this channel. That's not all channels, obviously, but it's what we want to do with this one. And if we were to spend more time on marketing, we might get a few more people coming in. We used to do this. We used to post every week on Exalted message boards. We used to try to post on Reddit, on other Discords, and it did bring people in. The thing is, though, that it became work for us, and work is a certain amount is fine, but it got to the point where then it started becoming like, I guess I have to do this. I guess I have to do that. So the other thing that we found is that it was a lot better for other people to talk as opposed to us. A recommendation is way more effective than self-promotion. So that's why sometimes we ask you to pass along some word if you feel so inclined. Just because for us, it did feel sometimes like we were working a bit too hard to up ourselves, and that's not really what we want to do. None of us are terrific at self-aggrandizing. Just 125 more subs, Requiem. You're absolutely right. Hey, Mistrich. It's the things that I wish that we could do on RPG Clinic, but I can't. Whether it comes to tech players, the stream itself, just all kinds of things that I would wish that we could do, but that we're not quite there. So providing edited things. We are debating and we are wondering every once in a while about doing more short form content, things that you can put on like a YouTube short, or I don't even have a TikTok account, which I know makes me behind the times, but being able to put things there because shorts do get more engagement. But again, we'd have to figure that out. We do not have the resources to hire an editor, because editors, first of all, if we want to pay somebody, we want to pay them, properly. We do not want to pay somebody in exposure. That doesn't seem fair to ask somebody to do the grunt work for us. Volunteers, fantastic. We love it when people volunteer. Gil's been doing a lot of great work on the wiki. Kung Fu Fenderson, Aragorn helped moderate the channel, which obviously we really do appreciate. But editing is it's a very time-consuming thing, and we don't want to just try to offload that on people. But we might start trying to figure out how to do that. But that's one thing that is we haven't been able to do is short form content on here, just because the amount of time and energy that we'd have to invest in it isn't something that we currently have. So, oh, you don't have a TikTok either? Okay, Gil. Well, I mean, I feel pretty self-assured in not having it. This is not TikTok bashing. I don't think that that's productive. It just isn't for me. And I think that's acceptable. Exposure would be negligible. You're right. We do like it when people interact with and enjoy our content, and we also do know from the numbers that we get that there are many of you out there who do watch it, and just we're also understanding of what many means. When we're all theater professionals, or at least if not active theater professionals, former theater professionals, and you will sometimes have put on a show and 7 people will see it, and that's all will ever see that show, and that's it. The views that we have look very low on YouTube, but for us they mean that a lot of people have enjoyed what we're basically doing, which we would be doing if nobody was watching, which is playing a game. So helpful. Requiem, I did close my Meta account, my Facebook account. There's only one thing that I miss from Facebook, and it's not even that big a deal, which is the Facebook Marketplace. It was a handy place to find stuff that people were getting rid of or wanting to sell for cheap. It's the one thing that I kind of miss, but everything else, all the people who I spoke to, I don't speak on Messenger anymore. I actually use Discord for a lot of those communications at this point, or I talk to them directly. But yeah, I ended up having to leave Facebook. The thing that actually drove me off Facebook, aside from privacy concerns, was just the fact that it felt like I was literally looking at ads every other post, and that I would miss a lot of things that people who I actually cared about were posting. And that did not feel great. So I bailed. So Gwen, we're still hoping to do that. Oh, you're talking about one-shots, not one-on-ones. Okay, so one-shots. Speaking about the impossible wish list, we found that when we started doing many one-shots in a row, that our viewership cratered. It didn't seem like people were enjoying them. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and you can tell me that I'm wrong, but it is something that we are conscious of. We're totally fine with doing one-shots, and doing an occasional one-shot here and there I think might be actually a good idea. But one thing that at one point I was curious about, saying like we can explore a whole bunch of different one-shots and really kind of get a feel for them, but people did not enjoy that. But I think part of that is because not knowing what's coming up, it can be tough, and not being known for that. We're known for like long-form storytelling. We're not really known for one-shots. So Kate wrote her one shot. That was a lot of fun. I really loved Major Problem that we did during our marathon stream, our most recent one anyway. I really did enjoy that quite a bit. And I do like playing in one shots. One shots are also the sort of thing that sometimes we are more likely to do when somebody isn't available, but we can't or don't want to run a session with fewer than the full complement of players. Now, for today, that wasn't really an option because it was a last minute thing that we found out that we weren't going to be able to play today. Like, it was this morning. You found out about it about 20 minutes after we realized that it was going to be impossible to play today. And the thing is, one-shots actually involve a whole bunch of setup that we don't always kind of get the chance to showcase. It feels like a lot of one-shots are like, okay, yeah, well, whatever, it's 100 words long and you just sit down and we'll just play. But it isn't that simple often. The way that our tech is set up, we do have a generic outline, like a generic layout that we can use for that sort of thing. But it often is just like our cameras are set up so that you can see 3 people across, and then you can see one person behind the desk here. So it always takes more effort than it thinks in order for us to be, okay, well, we have to change the layouts, we have to change this, we have to figure out who's playing, we have to see if there's any information that we want to present on screen. And we like to do things correct. One of the things that we do on this channel is that we often put a lot of effort into something, even if nobody notices but us. We still care. We want it to work. We want it to be good. Some of that is tech related. Kate puts a lot of work into this, puts a lot of work into the behind the scenes of it. And often it's stuff that you will never see, but it's helpful for us. I put work into this. I try to choose things like I want to make sure that the music is correct. I want to make sure that in terms of the planning, like today where we started stream 10 minutes earlier, we did not have a count in. We just started. These are experiments that I try to bring up. We all do to see how we can do things better. But one-shots kind of can't go at the drop of a hat. But clinic hours is set up. We can run a clinic hours. I can sit down and I can do clinic hours if I have 10 minutes morning. Long enough for me to put a pair of scrubs on and sit down. Because I tend to do clinic hours. So, clinic hours is the kind of thing that if I don't have a topic and I don't have questions ready to go, then it's a little harder. Which is another thing on the wish list that I can throw out there. I wish, and this is going to sound a little weird, but I wish that I could do more to contribute to the dialogue about role-playing games. But I don't feel like I can. I don't feel like there's space. There's a lot of great content creators out there who are throwing their hats into the ring and talking about role-playing, and that's kind of what we're doing here. But Clinic Hours is often just a conversation between the community. It's not designed, it isn't created, because it's off the cuff, it's live. It was originally thought of way back in the day, and this was before we even started role-playing on my Twitch channel. It was originally thought it was like, okay, it'll be a call-in show. People could call in with their role-playing questions, and I could help answer them. But I've realized, as we go on, that that's kind of a pipe dream, and part of it is because, if I'm going to be very honest with you, I'm tired of hearing from older white guys talk about role-playing games. And that's not to say that, that I don't think that I have things to say or that I feel like I'm being silenced. That's not it at all. I'm not trying to say that, like, I'm being held back. What I am trying to say is that I need to find a way to, if I am going to be contributing to the discourse, I need to find a way to do it so that I have something to offer that you can't normally find. That's the key. Shouting into the void is not something that is all that different from what a lot of other people are doing. So, and it's not because of my gender or because of my race, but it is something that I've just noticed, and it's just, it's how many of people who look like me and are my age need to throw their opinions out there. What do they have to offer that other people can be like, oh, this is somebody who is worth listening to? So I don't have that right now. So I don't do it. Clinic Hours is the limit for me, where I'll throw opinions out there, but it's in an unstructured, free-form, loose format. So if it ever becomes something like that, then that's just something that I have to think about, is what angle do I have? Being a game designer is not enough of an angle anymore. Being a storyteller is not enough of an angle anymore. So that is something that I just don't have at the moment. The other thing that I don't have, this is going to sound a bit weird. I have repeatedly stated, as we've played, that we have 3 players for a reason. 3 players and a storyteller. I like the fact that it's an odd number. An odd number tends to unbalance things, and unbalance helps drive stories forward. It's not a hard and fast requirement, but I tend to find that when you have 3 people as opposed to 4 people, 3 people push forward because you can have 2 against 1. You can have an argument between 2 people, and then one person can kind of come in and be the deciding vote. I don't like to do that as a storyteller. I don't want to be the person that says, okay, you can't decide what to do, then I will make the decision for you. I prefer that the players drive that story. And totally, Kung Fu Thunders, and again, I'm not saying anything against other white dudes talking out there. It's just I feel like I need to find a way to present information with a conceit or with an angle that then somebody could say, the reason why you would want to listen to John is this, compared to, hey, John has some ideas and maybe you want to listen to him. I want somebody to be able to say he's great because of X. So that's where I'm at for that. Yes, KFF, you are correct. But the thing is, there's the number one thing that I tell anybody who is looking to get into a creative pursuit, who wants other people to see and acknowledge it, because you want to get into making something just because you enjoy the process of making, great. It's no problem at all. The instant that you start saying, well, I want to monetize something, or I want to develop an audience, I want to develop a following, there's a lot of questions that then I'd have to throw out there. And the number one is, why would I care about you compared to anyone else in the world? What makes you special? What makes me getting something from you the important thing? Because at that point, that's where I find the creativity lies. Hello. Hi. Are you normally here lurking in other places, or are you just here just because we're talking RPGs today? So as an example, if you are a craft maker and you decide that you want to make crafts and then sell, that's great, no problem. But if you are 3D printing the same stuff that everybody else is 3D printing and just showing up with the same stuff that everyone else has, why would somebody buy from you compared to anybody else? Is it because your prices are much better? Is it because your stuff is better quality? Is it because you have something to offer that other people don't? Without something that sets you apart, it means that what you are settling for is just dividing the audience that exists and hoping that there's enough room for you. So when it comes to sharing opinions, when it comes to even playing here, uninspired Twitch name, yes! There you go. Hi! When it comes to this, we aren't fighting to do better than anyone else, because that's not the reason that we're doing it. But if we were, then I would have to say, why would somebody come and watch our stuff compared to anyone else? Now, for us, we have a focus on in-person play. We have a focus on playing storyteller system games for the most part, which is not the most popular game that's being played on there. Most people are playing D&D. And we have a certain kind of storytelling that we like to do on this channel that we feel sets us apart. But that's it. So when you're giving out advice and you want people to come and follow you, whether it's monetization or whether it's just building an audience, I find that if I'm just echoing the same advice that other people are saying, and I don't have an angle and I don't have a conceit, there's just not enough there. It's not enough there. But back to the number of players. So we have 3 players here. I do like the unbalanced nature of 3. But there's something else that I can't easily do, and that is, we have had people ask, like, I would love to be on the show. I would love to play. I would love to do that, to guest star. Oh no, I remember you. Absolutely. It's just because we moved to YouTube and the names tend to be different, it's sometimes I'm like, oh, I just don't recognize a particular name. We can't easily have somebody step in person to guest star here. We're limited. You see where I'm sitting, I have, room to move my hands and arms and stuff like that. But then when you swap to a game profile that we have, one of our layouts, we really only have the room for 3 people on the screen at once. Now, a lot of people put, 3 people and then 3 people on the bottom, or they just make everything smaller. We actually physically don't have the room. We broadcast from my office in my home, and I need a certain amount of space to work, so we have to keep at least a little bit of that there, but also the cameras that we have set up and all of that, we have to be able to put players where they want. We want the players to feel comfortable where they're sitting, and we also want to make sure that they can see me and then I can see them. There just isn't room for another person in this setup. Other things that you may have seen me do, for instance, over on Beanduck's channel when I was running Full Party, we were filming that in an entirely different location. There were more cameras involved. There were more space involved, and also more compromises as a result. So what it meant was that for Full Party, it worked out, and we were able to have 4 players and a storyteller, which was a lot of fun. But it's just not something that we can do randomly, easily here. Our physical space confines us, and this also causes us a certain amount of issue with the idea of making sure that everybody has enough room to breathe, to be creative. It is difficult to be creative when you are crammed and isolated. Not isolated, sorry. If you're crammed and you are restricted in your movement, restricted in your ability to relax, or your ability to just have that space to expand out and to feel better. You'll notice this if you spend any amount of time on work meetings where you have to be on a webcam. If you're on a webcam, you can't just kind of do that, right? Now, for one thing, this looks unprofessional, but you're also now off camera. It's hard to get up. It's hard to walk around. Your microphone might not pick you up. You may not have a camera that can track you. And oxygen is there as well. And if you are role-playing and you have to, like, okay, well, I have to roll my dice, but I can only roll my dice up here, and then because I can't even move my arms, that is a problem. KFF, yeah, it was the closest thing to a studio that I had done, but that wasn't an RPGClinic campaign. That was a Beanduck campaign. It's a Beanduck show. So if we tried to cram more people into this place, I don't think it would work. Even though I know technically how we could do it, it isn't going to be the easiest thing for us to do, while still also maintaining a certain amount of creature comforts that we need in order to be creative. For instance, the table where the players sit at block my access to the door. I can get around them, but that's because there's room. If we had to add a 4th player, then I would not be able to get up and walk out of this office, just straight up. I'd have to crawl over or under the table. So we can't easily fit somebody else in there, which is too bad. I would love to be able sometimes to have people who are guests on it, and we've had a lot of positive reaction to when we've had other people on the channel. People who you may have recognized from LARPs, friends of ours who have come in. Also, we've had just other performers in and around the city of Montreal, which has been fantastic, but it's just not something that we can easily accommodate. The easiest way for us to do it is if one of us can't play. And I am also not willing to ask players to, hey, just for this one shot, you don't need to show up. We're going to get somebody else. Because at the core, RPGClinic is the 4 of us. And you. To manually take somebody and say, maybe sit this one out, means that it's not RPGClinic anymore. So, how much can it cost to hire a studio and tech and hire actual people to take care of all this stuff? 10 Patreons? So, our Patreons are incredible. I am so happy that we have the support that we have on Patreon. It is a privilege that we have this ability, that we can share this game and our play with all of you, and that you're willing to support us. And it's one of the reasons why we were able to do things like improve our sound, improve our video. We commissioned art recently. The tech that we have, like all of these things are things that cost a certain amount of money, and we're just lucky that at this point, this hobby of ours is kind of self-sufficient, that we don't have to sink dollar after dollar into it. We are very lucky that you're able to help us, which means that then we are more likely to be able to give better streams and be able to take suggestions that you might have, be able to do more with what we've been given. Unfortunately, a studio, it's a bit hard. at a minimum, if you wanted to do these sorts of things, you would need to have we would need to have more cameras. We would need to have probably more microphones than we have now. The microphones that we have now are not cheap. Again, we're lucky that we have them. But we got these microphones, we got these Rode shotguns specifically because we had too many wireless issues with having all four of us in one small space. Wireless would drop in and drop out, which we didn't like. The lavs that we were using, people were brushing against them. And that's part of that creative oxygen space, right? Of sure, it might be easy to just have a lav and wear it, but then that means you have to shave your beard, right? Scott had a microphone here, but because he has facial hair, that facial hair would rub against the microphone, and that was an issue. If you clip it to your clothes, it means that anytime that you shift in your chair, anytime that you move your hands over your body, anytime that you potentially bang the microphone, somebody's going to hear. The reason why we shifted to these shotgun mics is because they're kind of set and forget. We have them, we calibrate them, and then people can just come in, sit down, and talk, and we don't have to worry that they're going to bang the microphone. The microphone that I have is right here in front of me. They can just sit down and go. But if we were to add more people, if we were to go to a studio, we'd have to add more of these microphones, and they're not cheap. We would have to have at least one more camera. The cameras are actually the least important thing for us. We wanted to make sure that the cameras were good quality, and right now they are. We're not streaming in 4K. We don't see the need, and a lot of places don't even support that. But, like there's people who have cameras and they have setups where they have wonderful lenses so that they can have bokeh in the background, that blur effect with lighting that really pops on screen kind of thing. But for us, it just doesn't seem to be a smart way to spend money. Plus, the distance between me and the bookshelf behind me is actually quite small, so you wouldn't get that much of an effect. So Requiem is what you said. I think at that point as well, you'd have to turn this into a full-time job. Exactly. And if somebody told me that you could do this as a full-time job, all four of us, that we could do this as a full-time job, I would still have to think about whether or not I wanted to do that. And there are reasons why. One, if it's a full-time job, am I going to have less fun? I depend on this as a creative outlet. I want this to continue for me. I can't speak to the other players, but I want this for me because this is something that I get to do, where I get to be a performer, I get to be a creator, I get to be a player. I get to sit down and enjoy things with my friends. The instant it's a full-time job, well, now I'm under pressure. I have to deliver. And not only do I have to deliver what other people are wanting to see. So I would have to think about it. I'd have to really think about it. Zaplica, if you care about those creases, I'm actually glad. Because without those creases and those curtains, they would be ugly, ugly wood, like faux wood panel doors behind, which I absolutely detest. They came with the place when we bought it, and we just haven't gotten around to replacing them because it would be a major hassle to do so. Is it going to be a job that pays enough for all of us to pay our bills? We have bills. I am not necessarily a huge fan of capitalism in a lot of ways. And all of that, but there was something that my mother taught me when I was growing up, and especially when she knew that I wanted to move into a creative field. She never discouraged me from doing so, but she did tell me one thing, which is money doesn't buy happiness, but the thing is, money solves a lot of problems, and money makes happiness possible. It's not necessarily the way that I wish the world worked, but at the same time, I am not so passionate about this that I'm willing to downgrade my life to instant ramen, twice a day, and to have no other no amenities, no home. Yeah, I have ugly cupboards. We live in a goddamn society. And as a result, I instantly then, if we were doing this as a full-time job, we'd have to focus on what are we doing in order to make sure that it still brings money in. And I'm not saying that that can't be fun, and I'm not saying that it can't be the dream to live, but I'm also saying that it would be a very difficult thing to do to start. And not only is it a difficult thing to do, but also the market's flooded now. Back in the day, we started right around the same time as Critical Role. Like, not exactly, but it was close enough. Now, if you want an actual play, you can find one. And the people who are bankrolling the big ones are bankrolling them. Wizards of the Coast making their own stream is them late reacting to the idea that Critical Role is the best thing to happen to D&D in 30 years. And now they're trying to get in on it, but they have to throw an immense amount of money behind it to have a studio, to pay the talent that can do it properly. Because it's not just the people sitting here. So there's that. The big ones are big. We cannot compete with them. Straight up. We don't even want to try. So, yes, I think that we're lucky for that, Gwen, and that is because of the support that we received. Go back and watch the original first episode of Exalt Witch Nexus, and we are running it on 2 Logitech C920s and a Blue Yeti microphone. 1 Blue Yeti microphone. And so our visuals and our sound were good enough, but they were just good enough. These days, that's the advantage that we have here. I'm not saying that that makes us better than other streams. I'm saying that that's what we wanted to do with our stream. And we're very lucky that we're able to do that at that level, right? We want to push forward with what we have. We want to try to make an excellent product within very tight boundaries of what we care about. So that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Critical Role, investing in other things like Darrington Press and making sure that they have things like Daggerheart is strictly because they don't want to be beholden to another company. It's the same reason why Valve has poured so much money into making sure that you can game on Linux instead of Windows. They do this not because they're like, oh, well, this would be easy. They do this because if Windows or if Microsoft at one point decided that they didn't want to support Valve anymore, that they said, well, the next version of Windows means you can't install Steam, then Valve is screwed. So they needed to find a way to be able to create the product they could rely on for themselves. Same with Critical Role. If one day D&D tanks for whatever reason, maybe it's because of something Wizards of the Coast did, maybe it's just because the game starts lacking in popularity, maybe it's because the new hotness comes along, then they are tied inextricably to that. So they're finding ways to make sure that they are not fully dependent on WotC. So there's that. Yes. Yeah, Gabe is generally a big Linux fan, and that helps. But that's a business decision. One that I agree with, one that philosophically I have some lean towards, in that I like it more when people can access things the way that they want. But there is that. Yeah, Noodle Bowl Gate. Exactly. Yeah, look, people do weird things in order to accommodate. We are not willing to accommodate in certain areas. We are in others, which is why we do things like we shifted to YouTube, because we became concerned that Twitch was going to make what we were doing difficult to continue to do. And it was also a problem because not only were their rules becoming more vague and yet also somehow more restrictive, but also they were taking a lot of money from Twitch subscriptions that, you know, again, we were very happy with whatever support we were getting, but we also are hoping that people, when they're giving their money, aren't thinking, well, I'm glad that I'm giving half of this money to Jeff Bezos. So there's that. Okay, FF, you make a very good point, right? Vampire the Masquerade has now been tied into D&D and D&D Beyond. People started freaking out, but this is a great idea, because if you want somebody to notice your game, you have to appeal to the D&D crowd, because there are so many people out there who think that role-playing is Dungeons & Dragons, and that's as far as they get, and they stop. They'll look at D&D, they'll look at WotC products, but then it won't occur to them to say, oh, there's other games out there, other games that you might be more interested in playing that might fit better for you. They just never find out. So you have to find ways to get noticed. So there's that. At any rate, this space also has other limitations that prevent me from doing some things that I would like to do with this channel. The biggest one is probably players, as you've noted. The other one is that because this space is also the space that I have to live in, one of the things that we used to do was we used to set up and tear down before and after every stream, depending on where we were streaming. Because at one point we were streaming in Liz and Scott's living room. At one point we were streaming in not in this place, but in another place where I lived, streaming in that living room. And the way we have it set up right now is that when it's time to start stream, we can sit down. The cameras are mounted. They're mounted to the wall and to the desk in such a way that they are out of the way and that we don't have to set them up every time. We have to focus them every time, but that's not a big deal. Chairs sit out, the microphones are set up in such a way that the table where the players sit, the microphones are bolted to that table, and so therefore we don't have to unpack the microphones, plug them all in and stuff like that. This helps for a couple of reasons, one of which is reliability. The more that you have to plug and unplug things, the more of a chance that something will go wrong. And also for speed and comfort. It means that it's less effort for us to start and stop a stream. But I still have to live in this space sometimes. I still need to use this for other things. And so there are certain things that I wish that we could do that are just not that feasible. Because it would mean that then I don't have the space. The desk that I'm sitting at right now, I could use more space. I absolutely could. I have my rolling tray, I have a keyboard, I have a mouse, I have my my Stream Decks here. I have 2 monitors in front of me. I have a cheat sheet, which is really just more of I have a blank Exalted sheet so that I can remember which are the damn abilities in Exalted compared to all the other games, because I've just played too many of them. And is it awareness or just alertness? Is investigation the thing in here or not? What about finance? So there's that. Yeah, at one point we streamed from a car. It's true. We did that. But I still, if I could have more space, that would be fine. But I just can't. More space would then mean that it would just expand outwards. Now, the amount of space that I have is actually quite adequate for what I have. But I have to live in this room, so I can't just infinitely go for the space that I have. It also means that we have a separate computer. The stream that we have runs off a computer that I cobbled together from parts. It's got way too nice a case for what it needs to be. It's arguably the best case that I own, and it's sitting here for the stream computer, but it works. It's fine. It does the job. But it means that there's another heater in here, right? Like every computer is a miniature heater, so that helps. Well, people don't engage with a lot of films. Just look at language as a barrier. There are so many great films out there that are not in the language that you would prefer to speak. And there's a barrier there because some people are like, I refuse to read subtitles, or I refuse to listen to dubbed films. And that's a shame. But it's understandable because that's a little bit of effort. It's a little bit of friction. And getting people to overcome friction is tough. Yes, KFF. Agreed. Yeah. Civ 5, my favorite civilization. So the other thing about guest stars that is a wish that I can't have is that there are times where I wish that we could have more direct participation. But I can't do that. There's a few reasons why. And these are tough sometimes for me to discuss because I don't want to make anybody feel badly. But the amount of effort that it takes to even have one person call in to guest star on this show, which Aragorn has done a couple of times, that actually is a considerable amount of effort in order to make sure that we can hear her, you can hear her, that she can hear us, and that none of those things cause feedback or cause a drop in audio quality. And it involves work on our side, it involves work on her side. The other thing is that it's difficult to have a very distinct, very precise way of making sure that the game still proceeds the way that I want it to. And having guest stars is always a way that something can get messed up. Always a way that the story can shift in a way that I didn't anticipate. Because I don't think that anybody would have a lot of fun if I was constantly like hanging over behind somebody, a guest star's back, and being like, you better do it exactly the way that I wanted you to do it, otherwise things are going to go badly, because that's kind of not the game that we're playing here. Poland has one person reading the lines in a monotone voice as a standard outside kids' movies. Yep. Yeah. Look, that's part of the job for Performers in Montreal, is to dub film and television in English, French. Disney has a different dub for Quebec French than they do for international French, despite the fact that they have the same words, not necessarily the same dialects, but the same words and the same grammar structure, but because they just know how much of a difference the two of them have for people. But the other thing when it comes to guest stars, and the reason why unfortunately I can't always have them, is that it's a lot of work on me to prepare those sorts of things. It's not just a tech preparation, it's also a what is this person going to be able to contribute, considering that I run games off the top of my head, off the cuff. That's correct, Requiem. So one of the part of the prep that goes into guest stars is that I need them to take things in a certain direction. And that's not to say that I set the one direction that things can go. My directions are 70% making sure that things don't go poorly, rather than 30% making them go where I want them to go. And when you involve guest stars, I don't want to limit them, but I also don't want them to then close avenues to the players that they thought were open, or open avenues to the players that I closed for a reason. So it's hard. So I do give vague directions, and I make sure that they kind of understand, here's the playground, here's the sandbox that you can sit in, but it's a lot of work. And I don't easily trust people doing that. I've known Gwen for a very long time. I trust her. I can't easily pass that trust on to other people, even though I know they're excellent role players. It's the effort that it takes is something that I just don't have in me. I have found in the past other ways for people to participate, and I am still thinking of ways that we might be able to do that in the future for people who are interested in finding ways that they can interact with the game in another way other than just being in the audience. That's true also when, like, when I've guessed it, I'm given information I should get out, or information I might give out, or information I know that I can't get out. Absolutely. But also remember that if you're guest starring with me, you are being spoiled. And there's something that I've learned about spoilers, is that some people are like, oh, I don't care about spoilers, I just want to be a part of it, and then they're disappointed afterwards. They stop engaging because now they know things that they shouldn't, and it becomes less interesting for them. So, oh yeah, no, we've got quite the EU contingent. I love our EU people. That's right, Gwen. Dio was the voice of the ship at one point in a previous campaign that we did, and I may very well ask people to make recordings for things that might appear in the future. Recordings are easier for me to vet. Recordings are things that I can say, here is a script, put your own spin on it, go. Or, hey, do what you want, but at least I can listen to it in advance and tell you whether I need it to change. But there is that. And yeah, that is the other thing, right? Gwen has experience streaming. Gwen has a lot of experience streaming. And every time I have a guest star on here, there's always the chance, I always run the chance that someone is going to freeze up on stream, that it will be a problem. Now, the guest stars that we've had have almost all, or always, I have to think about the guest stars that we've had. We haven't had that many, but we have been doing this for a long time. They're all people who are used to performing live. So, as like a job. So it helps, but there's always still the risk. I know actors who are incredible, and then you put them in a voice booth and they seize up because it's just not the kind of acting that they're used to doing. They're so specialized. There's some actors who are fantastic working on stage live in front of people, but that's because they need to spend weeks with a character, honing it, creating the voice, understanding the needs, the motivations, and all of that. And rehearsing. And that's not the same kind of acting as somebody saying, okay, well, we need you for a TV spot. You're literally going to get your lines 5 minutes before you're supposed to be on camera, and you get 3 takes and that's it. And for some actors, it's just way too big an ask. For motion capture, you are asking people to come in, and sometimes you're asking them to say, look, you don't get a costume, you don't get props, or if you get a prop, it's a tube with a few markers along it. Even though you're supposed to think that this is actually a goat, it's just a tube. They just don't have that kind of ability to shift the way that they think in order to perform with the requirements that they need. It doesn't make them worse actors. It means that they have specializations. Specializations are great, right? Like, means that they can be at the top of their game in some places. It means they can't be at the top of their games in all places. And on stream is another thing. And I've always been a little bit like, is this person going to be able to come forward and hit the notes that I need them to hit while also having fun? Because again, we're not paying people to do this, so they got to do it for fun. And in a way that the audience can appreciate it as well. Oh, soap operas are hugely demanding. So Requiem, soap operas have the equivalent of, you have to have a script. You have to be able to memorize that script really fast. Sometimes you have to be able to improvise. You have to be able to do it day after day after day after day. And it is unrelenting. Soap operas are hugely difficult. They wear a lot on the actors. It takes a lot out of them, but it's the job. And that's, yeah, so KFF, that's the other thing. Timing is a big thing. We don't like doing remote, and our remotes are pretty quick because we're literally going, we live in the same province. We live in a, within, 100 kilometers of each other. So that's not necessarily an issue. But all of a sudden, if I start saying I want to bring somebody in live who lives in Australia, or somebody who lives in the United Kingdom, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, any number of countries, Hungary, Poland, then we start introducing lag. And you might think that lag isn't that big a deal when it comes to games like this, and it is a huge deal for games that we run, because we react so quickly off our own expressions and our own voices that when somebody is lagging behind, it can make the game feel hitched in such a way that everybody has to stop and recognize that they need to give a few seconds after they speak so that somebody else can come in who may not have the ability to cut in the way that we would want to if we were live. So lag is hard. I will admit, when it comes to Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, as a side tangent, I used to watch that show religiously, and I stopped because it got to be too much emotional labor. But I love the stuff that he does. Like, I really support the show, and I think the show is like it's a good show, and it's well researched. It's great and all of that. But like, it got especially exhausting for me because so much of it is like, here are things that happen in the United States, and I'm like, I don't live in the United States. I can't even vote to change that. And it just got to the point where, and I recognize that, you know, like putting your head in the sand isn't a great solution either, but I just couldn't keep up with it. I still miss the wacky stuff that he does, though, so I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to see a supercut of his appearances on General Hospital and Days of Our Lives. Yeah. It's, yeah, lag is the mind killer. Lag is the little death that kills all fun. It is true. It's just, it's that friction point. Friction points are the things that matter the most. Yeah. Yeah, he is gray-haired for a reason. But yeah, it's not that I will like refuse to watch it, but yeah, I definitely have to figure out which ones I want to watch, because inevitably his shows kind of deal with stuff that sucks. And is it stuff that sucks that I'm interested in hearing about, or stuff that sucks where I need to learn, or is it stuff that sucks and I'm like, yeah, I know, and it sucks and I can't do anything about it, and like it's hard. It's hard. I would not swap our players out. That's not something I'm interested in doing. But it does mean that there are guest stars that I can't necessarily bring on when I would like to. Whether it's because they're remote or in person. There are ways around this that, if you can think of them, let me know. But it is something for RPG Clinic that is just not as possible. Other things. Let's address one of the many elephants in the room. Mage the Ascension, or alternately Mage the Awakening, if you are more of the Eldritch persuasion. Yeah, KFF, you're right. You're absolutely right. Anyway, Mage. Mage is a game that I hold quite dear. I ran it for years. I loved it. I think that Mage has a lot of interesting things to say, and it has some great role-playing opportunities. Thank you, Aramithius. I really appreciate hearing that. And it's not that we'll never have them on again or anything like that. It's just, you know, we have to... It is still a struggle, even for them to call in, so... we've had a lot of people suggest Mage as a game that we should play. We have players who really enjoy being able to do a wide array of really cool stuff that is not necessarily normal, so supernatural abilities. We have players who can get quite involved in character creation, and I'm sure that they would love to come up with paradigms. For people who haven't played Mage the Ascension, it's set in the world of darkness, so it is in modern day, unless you're using an alternate setting. And it runs on the idea that the world works... I'm oversimplifying this, but the world works because humanity's collective belief make things real. Mages are people who realize that they can exert their own will on the world in order to create effects beyond sleepers. Sleepers being normal humanity who don't realize that they have this effect. But every mage has their own paradigm. What they believe is the reason that their magic works. So you might have a hermetic, so someone from the Order of Hermes who believes that calling upon ancient rituals and words can help bring about an effect, versus a virtual adept who believes that you can create magic through technology and through rewiring, like I can wirelessly hack my own DNA, versus a cult of ecstasy, who is somebody who might believe that engaging in extreme emotional or physical reactions can help bring about magical effects. But they all have their own idea of why magic works, and it works just for them. And you can have arguments with other mages about why things may or may not work, but you also have to be able to justify all your magic based on your paradigm. If your paradigm doesn't allow you to think that you can heal somebody, you can't. Because you don't believe it, it can't work. But Mage is also a system, uses a system that's very open-ended. Very, 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 very open-ended. It is a way that you have the spheres. So you have things like life, forces, entropy, spirit, where if you want to do something, you have to have a combination of all the spheres that you need, and you have to have a level in those spheres equal to the point. But each sphere, like the first is being able to detect something. It might be to be able to alter it minorly or majorly, or then create something, or then transmute. Like they have all kinds of different levels, and you have to argue with your storyteller all the time about whether a particular effect would be this sphere or that sphere, and what level of sphere, and multiple spheres combining. And to do so off the cuff can be exhausting, and it can be hard for people who aren't used to it. And we're on stream. Being on stream means that no matter what we're doing, it's live. So if you're trying to figure out what to do in the next round of combat, and you're like, I think I can come up with an effect for this, it might take you 20 minutes to figure it out. And in the meantime, we're sitting around dead air. We can't kind of be like, I have to figure this event, can we take a break all the time? Because we just can't afford to take breaks all the time. Streams are not that interesting if you play for 5 minutes and then stop for 20, and then play for another 5 minutes and stop for 20. In person, it can be fantastic, because you can help each other out, you can have discussions about it, it can be a lot of fun, it can be a lot of philosophical banter, but it won't translate to a stream as easily, which can be kind of harder. And if you don't have experience with Mage, which none of my players do, it would involve a lot of prep for them to get up to speed, and then a lot of choice paralysis as to what they can do. So it's hard for me to recommend based on how complex the system is, which is why if Mage came out with a 5th edition, although at this point, who knows what it'll be called, it's something that we might consider if the system is up to snuff. But there's also another aspect to it, which is the cultural stuff. Mage fell prey to what a lot of Werewolf fell prey to, which is cultural appropriation and also misunderstanding of what that might mean. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of people out there who might feel strange being like, well, what about these kinds of mages? And I might be like, they're just not easy to have in a game in 2026. It's Scott. Hey, Scott. I would love to give it a try if I felt like everybody would be comfortable, but so far, as we've discussed, none of us have actually felt comfortable enough to go through with it. It's not to say that it won't ever happen, but we aren't willing to fall on our faces live on stream all the time, and that makes it difficult. And fall on our faces isn't just the system, right? Like, in the original Mage, they have magic kung fu. They have elements pulled from voodoo, elements pulled from yoga. And not all of it is done in such a way that I feel super great about it now. If it gets a revamp like Werewolf did, it might actually be fantastic for that. But at the moment, it doesn't exist. Because I also would recognize that I don't have the time to just create my own game. I have every once in a while, like, tinkered with rule sets and all of that, but it's a lot of work, and I don't like putting something live without having workshopped it, and I just don't have the time to workshop. I would love to be able to play Changeling again, but I don't think I could go back to playing 20th Anniversary Edition. Though that rule set has become too clunky after playing 5th edition. So we're kind of stuck waiting until either an edition can come out that we like, or I create one that I like. And I have every once in a while taken a crack at it, but we'll see. I haven't found something that I feel is great yet. And yes, I am aware of the Changeling 5th edition fan-made project that is out there. I think that it's an interesting project, and you should go take a look at it if it's something that you want to take a look at. But it is also not the. I suspect that it's not the Changeling that I would want to run. First of all, it's got a very specific mood that is different. But the other thing is that I'm not convinced of the rule set that they've introduced. I don't know how play tested it was, and even then, I also, like, in looking at it, I was like, I noticed some things that I would bounce off of. So, yeah, Paradox is absolutely something that you could do with alternate dice. There's a lot of great stuff out there. There's a lot of great potential. We're just waiting to see what it'll look like, right? But yeah, it needs some work. You might argue that Changeling also needs work, but that's a little also different because Changeling has a lot of love for it based on the kind of folklore that is presented in there. And I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong by saying, like, here's the folklore we want to focus on, but there's some stuff. We'll see. I don't know what White Wolf has in store. I am not an insider. And for that matter, we're not playing World of Darkness right now. We're playing Exalted, so there's that. I wish that I could use all the music that I wanted. I loved using video game soundtracks for games because they kind of are designed at evoking a mood and designed to be repetitive. But that's just not becoming possible more and more these days. We're getting locked out by using them on YouTube. Spotify is giving us issues now with some of the music that we've chosen, which means that they just straight up block the episode entirely. So we license our music, and I like the music that we have that's licensed, but it means that I can't use the music that I was hoping for. So I wish that I could do that too. Final Fantasy VII and Thomas's Alone soundtracks be on repeat. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I would want Changeling to do, Gil, is it does a good job, a better job with some kiths than others, but Cluricon, as described, kind of fall pretty flat for me because they're basically like even the art in the book. Here, I'll show you. Yep. So, if I look at the Cluricon example in the book, it's hard to see, but literally has an Irish flag on his shirt. We license the music for the stream, so we now at this point all the music that we use is completely ours to use, and it's great. And yeah, we do. There are music bundles on Humble Bundle, and there's tabletop audio and all of that stuff. There are things that we can use. It's just some of it is also that prep time, right? If I've played a video game, I know what its music sounds like already. Yeah, so the Cluricon in this book literally has an Irish flag on it, and his ability, or their abilities, are I hoard things and I can start fights. It's not great. Cluricon is, yeah, it's one of those things that I would really sort of be like, there can be something interesting in there, but you really got to flesh these out a bit better than you already have. One of the things is that the base kith from the original Changelings, so we're talking things like She, Knockers, Trolls, Boggans, Ishu, Puka, had a lot of stuff put into them because the vast majority of them got kith books. The only one that didn't get a kith book was Boggan, and then they kind of got one, but only after 20th Anniversary Edition was released. But like Piskies, Cluricon, Selkie, it's a little shakier for them. There just isn't as much material that's worth looking at for them. So that, at least it wasn't I drink and I start fights, right? Yeah, absolutely. And I also, not to go on too much of a changeling tangent, I don't agree with Autumn versus Arcadian She as Kith. It felt like they wanted to have 13 Kith, and that was an easy way for them to do it. But I don't particularly... It's not that I have a problem with either one of them. First, I don't think they should be separate Kith. To me, a Kith is like, this is the sort of mythology that I'm, drawing from. And Arcadian and Autumn She draw from the same one, so why are they different Kith, first of all? But also, it kind of felt like you don't need to have a separate Kith in order to play what are almost identical. They literally, the difference between the two of them is basically like the flaws that they carry, and anyway. Yeah, you can easily have variations among She. You could be like, look, if you want to play a She who got sent back to Arcadia or went back to Arcadia and then got kicked back out into the real world, great. But if you want to play a She who stuck behind during the interregnum, great. That would have been the easy way to do it. And I think that would have been the better way. But they didn't. So that's that. But yeah, I'm not against Mage. And I'm also not against Changeling. It's just Changeling and Mage, we would want the less clunky system. We got spoiled. Werewolf had a system that just made running combat so much smoother and so much easier. I really did appreciate it. I would love to see a Changeling 5th. I would love to see a Mage 5th. But we're just going to have to wait to see what they have. Because Exalted is just a different kind of combat altogether. It's just a different beast. But we had a lot of fun with Werewolf for that. I really liked that Werewolf campaign quite a bit. But you also, one thing that I can't always have, I can't keep campaigns running forever. Interest starts to fall off, not necessarily from players, but from the audience. We do, even though we make our choices based on what's fun for us, we do care about what the audience wants. We do care about how the audience perceives things, so we try not to do something if we feel like nobody else would be interested. But I reckon my main issue with Changeling is there's too much to track. Nightmare, Banality, Wisdom, Glamour, and each one affecting rolls and results in different ways. Wisdom. Am I missing? Do you mean willpower? Because I don't know of Wisdom as a stat in Changeling. No, I agree. The thing about Changeling is that we kind of, like, as you'll notice in Changeling the streaming, we kind of largely left some of those things by the side, except for specific story arcs, just because tracking them was not all that interesting and there was just a lot to deal with. My ideal version of Changeling would probably eliminate some of those systems altogether or change them radically. Similar to what Werewolf did with the idea of Harno and then the addition of Hoglosk, which I thought was a great idea to do it that way, but I would much rather the Banality follow a similar kind of situation as opposed to it being like you accumulate it in drips and drabs, that instead Banality is a thing that just happens to you all at once. Major life events cause Banality. And I think that I would prefer that than kind of the idea of like, you have to file your taxes and so you have to go to the post office and that makes you feel bad and so you'll possibly have to roll for a Banality trigger, which then gives you a little bit of something, which then a little something. It's just too much. It means that Changeling as a game puts more focus on the things that I don't want to do when I'm role playing, which is normal, boring, real life stuff. If there isn't a way to make normal, boring, real life stuff compelling, I don't want to do it. And Banality isn't even like being sad or being stressed. It's killing dreams. And so being like, you should have a scene where you have to go and visit your sister, and your sister's a real Autumn person and she's difficult to deal with. I think that can make for a really cool thing. But it's just not feasible to be able to come up with all the different instances that a changeling would have to deal with that and then have to keep track of all that. I'd rather do it in a more deliberate way. I'd rather do it in a specific way. Yeah, that musing session. The concept of musing and gaining and creating glamour, like some of that stuff I think is cool. I think that there's some value in it. I think that it gets in the way of playing a game where you get to be a changeling. Is the problem. I don't really want to do that. You know, I like the idea that you're stuck and you need to get some glamour. You need to get some glamour quick, but in order to do so, you have to sacrifice something. Great, fantastic. I think that's compelling. But being like, oh, did you want some glamour? But you have to spend the next 4 weeks making sure that somebody can create art. That's not something that's interesting to play. Not really. Not over a long period of time, not repeatedly. It's just that can be interesting, but not when there's all kinds of other stuff. It's just a stuffed game, and we need to take some of that stuff out. I mean, look, KFF. That's something else. So weirdness, that's the thing that I'm trying to point out here. The slow wearing of banality is insidious. Doing the moral thing, like being there for your friends and family, or being the changeling going on adventures, I think that is cool. But that game, alongside the kind of game that I like playing, this game supports both of those things, but not well together. Not as easily. That's the thing, because it's not just, oh, I have to keep an eye on my banality, but now I also have to keep an eye on my nightmare, and I have to keep an eye on my bedlam, and I have to keep an eye on my 2 different health tracks, and I have to keep an eye on, like, there's just so much that it becomes much more of a wear on the storyteller and on the players to interface with all those aspects of a game and come out with something that you want to play while keeping track of all of it. It's not impossible. Look, I've played Changeling more than I've played any other game that I ever have, right? Like, this is the game that I've spent the most time on, and I love it, and I hope that I get to do more. But it's just, it supports so much stuff that the mechanics need to be able to have ways to take a step back. And that's a difficult thing to do. It's sort of like if you're playing a video game and you're like, okay, well, I really like playing life sims. I like playing games like The Sims or Paralives or stuff like that. I really like getting the nitty gritty of like my character's emotional state and all that. I'm like, okay, great. It's fantastic, right? You'll see that also in games like Disco Elysium. And then I say, okay, so you have that. But you also have this amazing shooter that you get to play as well. First person, it's fantastic. The sound of the guns feels really good. It's like the enemies, there's so many different kinds. They're wonderfully crafted and created. It's a heart-pounding adventure. It's fantastic. And you go, great. Okay, so now I have a life sim and I get an excellent shooter. Fantastic. I'm like, yep. Also, you have a great puzzle. Oh man, the puzzle mechanics in this thing, fantastic. You're going to be able to pick up objects and manipulate them in real time. You're going to be able to mix and mash. We have a physics engine and a chemistry engine that's going to make all of that stuff really cool. Oh, okay, that's great. Oh, but you know what else you get to have? You also get to have a racing simulator. And here, you're going to be able to tech and gear out your vehicle in ways that respond to real-world physics. It's amazing. And then when you get in that car, we've got a whole HUD for you, and here's a wheel that you get to play with and pedals. But don't forget the life sim part. That's really important too, because if you get sad, you can't drive as well as you once did. And if you spend too much driving, you're not going to be able to shoot as well as you once did. But if you like the shooting and you like the driving, well, now you're not going to have as much time for those puzzles that we really came out for you. It does a lot of things, but what it's not doing is getting out of the way of the player engaging with the stuff that they want. I love telling different stories that involve different sort of aspects, right? I love coming up with a theme for a game, and like, this is a game that's about more than just X, Y, or Z. In a bunch of my games, the themes can be quite common because it's something that I know the players like to play, and it's something that I know that I like to play, and so that's fine. Like romance is a theme that comes up a lot. But in Werewolf, for instance, they were surrounded by people who needed to get drug up. They needed somebody to come in and inspire them and to help them so that they could reach their full potential. That was a lot of what Werewolf was about. But it would feel kind of weird if I couldn't choose the theme that I wanted for Changeling because of a mechanic. And it's... If I don't think that banality is a theme that I want to investigate in a game, then the game should let me ditch it. And it does, because I could just not pay attention to it, and that's fine. But then it takes away a big part of what I think Changeling is. The horror of Changeling, or the struggle, the strife in Changeling, is the fact that, like, you are in a losing battle. You will not be able to maintain your dreams forever. The longer that you go on for, the more of a chance that you're just going to one day wake up and not believe as much in what your other life is, and eventually you'll have to leave it behind. And I think that's a fascinating thing, but the way that this game makes you track banality is hard. If you're also interested in being the heroic, you know, the knight errant who's going out and spending a lot of time in the dreaming and fighting against Chimera and all that, and then you have to come back and be like, okay, but now I have to interact with a system that just doesn't interest me as much. Which is why if you had something like Hoglosk and Harno and Werewolf 5th Edition, where you were just like, major life events are things that you can check against banality for, it makes it a little bit easier. It's the same thing with, like, okay, Nightmare is kind of tied into that, in that, like, you have Bedlam versus banality, but they two actually don't quite mesh properly, which is weird because they are kind of polar opposites of each other. It gets much. As he drinks. So Changeling right now is a game that I think is a fantastic one to play, but you have to tweak it the way that you want to play it. And that is okay, but it means that for the next edition, what I would hope for is that they'd have ways to make that easier so that you can focus on what you want to do instead of having so many options that it's just not doing anything correct. So but we're probably not going to play Changeling again until it gets a rules update, at least. So there's that. So one thing I can't have is I can't have rules updates when I want them, and I don't have the time to make those games myself. It's also something that I do for a living, and it's kind of hard to, like, do something for a living, come home, and then do it for my leisure time, and not feel like I'm only spending all of my time doing that. But we will see. We will see. I'm going to take the chance to answer Zablika's question just while we're in here. Zablika asked, did I have NPC casts or aspects planned out before the players chose their characters, and how much of a difference in character dynamics do I think that choice makes? I deliberately waited until I knew that the players wanted to play Sidereals before I started crafting more of the campaign. So I needed to know sort of what the splat was. And part of the reason for that is that if they had all chosen to play, say, Solars, then the game would have felt a lot different. The themes would have been different. And that's okay. But I try not to invest too much time in universe creation if it's never going to happen. So I draft pitches, and the pitches I put a bunch of work into them. I try to make sure that they're interesting so that the players understand what I'm trying to do and where I'm going with them. But when I make a pitch, I don't push to create everything right away. Was the Datafall part set up before they picked Sidereals? No. So Datafall and the fact that it was set in a cyberpunk shard was part of the pitch, and but it would have. Sorry, let me answer the question, because I think I screwed up. Datafall was a pitch, and it was a pitch based on the idea that they were playing Exalted, and that didn't depend on the splats, but I didn't come up with a lot of where the ship came from and why it's going around doing the thing that it's doing, all that, until they picked sidereals. It was more that this is a way that we could play it, but I presented Datafall alongside the idea that they'd be playing sidereals. That's how I pitched it. I did not come up with, for instance, like the NPCs that they encountered. I didn't start building them until I knew the kind of sidereals that they wanted to play. And it's not because I'm like, I always have to fill the gaps. It's not that like, oh, well, we have a Zenith and a Night and a Twilight cast, so we have to have an NPC who's a Dawn and have to have an NPC who's an Eclipse. That's not the way that I want to work. But I also don't want to create a character and then have somebody get really excited about playing a character who's very similar. Because then it's kind of like, oh, well, what am I going to do with this now? These two characters are quite similar. Maybe that can be interesting, but also a lot of the reason why players pick what they do is because they want to feel special. So I tend not to plan out too many NPC casts or aspects until I know what the players are interested in. But so instead what I come up with are more archetypes, and I sort of say, okay, we're playing sidereals, great. I'm going to start thinking of things, but I'm not going to lock a lot of things in until I know what kinds of sidereals you're playing. And it's not just casts that I'm interested in at that point. It's also, you know, are you a social character? Are you a thinky character? Are you a fighty character? So I come up with an archetype, like for instance, for Neon Wisdom, I knew that there were certain things that I wanted to do, but I didn't lock in the fact that she was a doctor. I didn't lock in the fact that she was a chosen of endings until I knew what the other players were doing. Out of curiosity, if when the game started your players wanted to play two different splats, say Kate and Liz wanted to play Sidereal, but Scott wanted to play Lunars, would this be an issue or less of an issue if the relative power level is similar? So, for Exalted, I said, if you all want to play the same splat, we're likely to play 3rd edition, unless that splat doesn't have a dedicated source book yet. If you wanted to play different splats, we're likely to play Essence, because Essence is, as a game line, is a little bit better set up to support it. But I even said, like, look, if you wanted to play ones that are similar in power level, like if one of you wanted to play an Exigent, because I can control the power level of an Exigent, then I was going to say, okay, well then that was fine. We could play in 3rd edition if we wanted to. I did make it pretty clear that if a player was like, I want to be a Solar, and somebody said, I want to play a Dragonblood, I was going to basically say that we kind of are being pushed towards Essence, because the power disparity between those two characters is pretty distinct. And yes, I know that there's some ways of being like, well, you make the Dragonblooded Essence 2 and the Solar Essence 1, but the length of our campaigns mean that pretty rapidly the Solar would just vastly outstrip that Dragonblood. And that's just not as interesting for me at this point in time. The idea of people wanting to play different splats is something that I like to support when I can, but I will shut it down if I can't. So Exalted is built in such a way that it is a little more possible. But like, for instance, if we were playing Changeling and then somebody said, well, I don't want to play a Changeling, I want to play a werewolf, I would have said no. And the main reason is that, first of all, the World of Darkness splats do not actually have great interoperability if you are focusing on the player experience. If we were playing 20th Anniversary Edition, right? So let's ditch W5. We're playing Werewolf 20th and Changeling 20th, because I can't compare Werewolf 20th. Sorry, I can't compare Changeling 20th with Werewolf 5th. But if we were comparing the two of them and I said, okay, well, there's going to be combat, the sheer hand-to-hand combat of Werewolf is designed in such a way that it would be extremely difficult for the Werewolf player and the Changeling player to have a similar experience. We're not even talking power level, we're just talking a similar experience. Werewolf combat doesn't feel the same as Changeling combat. And Changeling combat having things like, oh, well, I have chimerical weapons, so then we can have this duel to the death, but somebody isn't actually going to die, they're just going to be chimerically killed. The werewolf can't engage with that. Werewolf is like, no, I kill, motherfucker. I rip and tear until it's done. So those kinds of games are much, much, much trickier, and I tend to say no, because also the themes of those games tend to be different, and the mechanics behind the characters don't quite line up as well. Imagine trying to play Werewolf where you have to deal with the idea of Rage and Hoglosk and Harno in a campaign that was actually just all about trying to seize power for the Justicar in your local area when all of the elders suddenly disappeared, and it's the Ancillae who have to step forward. It's just not the same kind. If I wanted 2 solar, 1 wanted abyss, would it be possible for 3rd edition as the 2 are in theory the same power level? Yes, but. So here's where the but comes in, Requiem. I'm going to get to Zabluka's question in a second. Here's where the but comes in for that. It's a ton of more work for me to deal with player characters versus quick characters that I can make and fudge. So if I'm playing an NPC who's a different Exalta, like say I introduce an Abyssal to the campaign, I don't have to go granular on how that Abyssal works. I can if I really want to, but I don't have to. But when players do. I must be granular. And then at that point, now I am dealing with different kinds of Exalted, and that puts more load on me. It's not something that I'm against, but it is a consideration to be made. But the other thing is that when we say that they're in theory the same power level, that is a theoretical concept, but it isn't in practice, and often because there's things like some may be more powerful in some areas than others, right? Like if you say we're setting the campaign in such a way that like we're never going to deal with Death Lords, we're never going to deal with Malpheus, we're never going to deal with Necromancy, then the Abyssal is weaker in that way, right? So it's some wiggle room there. So Zabluka, other exile types that were being discussed, a bunch. Exigence have always been something that we've kind of danced around. The idea of being able to be the exalt of something is cool, but that exigence are just a lot of work. But they're not just a lot of work for me; they're also a lot of work for the player. Coming up with a concept, being able to build out charm trees, being able to decide how your particular exigence is expressed can be a lot of work, and that was being presented as an option to players and they were seriously considering them, and I was willing to do it, but they ended up not. When we got a hold of the Sidereal's book and started really taking a look at it instead of just glancing at it, there was a lot of really cool shit in there. Yeah, so Liminals and Gatimians, my rule for those two was that if we were playing those, we must play Essence, because they do not have official material yet available, and unless you're playing Essence, and because of that, I wasn't willing to homebrew the thing entirely. So that was part of it, and we kind of decided that we would rather play 3rd edition than play Essence. Now, the Essence has got more kind of material now, and the Storyteller's Guide is out. I think that's what it was called. Anyway, which made a couple of changes, and that was kind of neat. But Essence as a whole has some issues that we're not super thrilled with. So we'll see if that book fixes it. But we were already trying to figure out what to play before that book was available. Yeah, I want players to play what they're interested in, to play what they're fascinated by. Which might be a piece of cheese. I want players to feel like they're playing the characters that they wanted to play, the stories that they wanted to explore. And if people felt very strongly about wanting to play different splats, then I would have found a way to make it work. But I did say, if you all pick the same splat, it's easier on all of us. And they decided that they all had interesting characters to play in one splat compared to others. So it ended up working out. I still think that there might be room in a campaign in the future for mixed if we ever come back to Exalted. I just don't know. But I'm not against it. Definitely not against it. And I am going to have to, at some point, I am going to be creating a couple of charms specific for Datafall in order to help kind of take into account the specifics of the universe that we've created. But so if I'm already creating charms, then clearly Exigence can't be that bad. So we'll see. Are there other questions that people want to toss around here? Just while we've got everybody here? While we're all hanging out? Because I don't have any kind of set time limit for today. I'm not going to be, unless we get like a really cool conversation going, I'm unlikely to go all the way through to 5 o'clock. Exigent of hairstyling kind of rules because I can think of a lot of combat applications for that. I can think of a lot of social complications for that. That would be awesome. I would love to see that. What decade do we bet Liminals or Gatimians for X3 comes out in? I think there's a lot of pressure on OPP to make this kind of Exalted content from a niche group of people, and so it's a dangerous thing to dangle in front of people. Because how many people are genuinely interested in playing a Liminal or a Gatimian versus how many people are willing to pay for the product versus how much effort it's going to take to create? It's dangerous, right? It's kind of like Boggins didn't get a Kith book originally because I think they sort of figured that Boggins were the least interesting Kith to create one for, and that it wasn't going to be worth the effort. And in much the same way, I think that might apply to some of the Exalted themselves, some of the splats. I know that Liminals are happening. Gatimians probably will still also happen. I wouldn't be able to say exactly when. And that's also ignoring the idea that there is a distinct possibility that Exalted may be getting a new edition at some point. But I don't know. Depends on how well Exalted does as a game line and if they can find people willing to assume that mantle. So. I mean, rapid hair growth alone has so many applications. I wouldn't know. So KFF, is there a chance for you to try out not storyteller systems to know the answers, but maybe? Yeah, we played Avatar Legends, we played Star Wars Edge of the Empire. So we have done those things. We did our mini campaign with Blades in the Dark that Scott ran. We have played a bunch of one-shots. So you were talking about in the future. So here's the thing. The answer is maybe. But we have a couple of things that are important for us to keep in mind. The first is we tend to enjoy games where we do a lot of social stuff, where we do a lot of talking, where we do a lot of interacting with somebody that isn't necessarily violence. And yeah, that's it, KFF. Like, I don't know if OPP is going to get it or whether White Wolf might pull the license back. We'll see. Part of me wonders what they could do with it, and I'd be interested to see. Because remember, you can play older editions of things. No one says you have to play the latest edition of anything. You really like 2nd edition Exalted, go play that. It's all still there. You're allowed to do it. You want to play 20th Anniversary Werewolf? Go for it. You want to play 1st edition D&D? Apparently that's really popular these days. Anyway. We bought Daggerheart. We pre-ordered it. We looked at it. I think that Daggerheart is a game that I'd be far more interested in playing than D&D. And we tried it. We tested it. to, not extensively, but we did test it. And the thing that it doesn't have is a system whereby it felt like the player's abilities, like on their sheets or on the cards that come with it, had a lot of effect on the social part of the game. And there's two schools of thought when it comes to those things. Yes, KFF, yeah. Wink and a nod, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. There's two schools of thought. There's the Brennan Lee Mulligan school of thought, which is he doesn't need social systems because he knows how to do that and he improvs it, and other people improv it, and that's fine. He wants systems to deal with things that he doesn't know how to do, like combat. But I know that there's the other side, which is that players, even ones who are very much interested in the social aspects of it, still like to be able to play in that area, to have abilities in that area, and to be able to self-express their characters in that way. Daggerheart did not have enough character expression or social mechanics to draw us in. But we also said, like, hey, maybe as a one-shot or as a mini-campaign, Daggerheart would be interesting to try. And maybe we'll even find that it's fantastic and that we love it and that we'll play it, and we just will not worry about dealing with the rest of the stuff that we normally get, right? The concept of playing games that are not storyteller is absolutely still on the table, completely. Our logo has a D10 in it. And it kind of, because that's where our roots are from, and that's where a lot of our games are kind of focused. And I like the storyteller system, warts and all, because it does things that my player group really likes to do. But I have yet to find another system that has grabbed us with the same sort of fervor. Edge of the Empire. We played this a bunch. I realized that I am mirrored, and so therefore this is all mirrored for you. But I can fix that. Maybe I feel like fixing that. I have to actually unlock this. So, Edge of the Empire as a game, honestly, this we bounced off of system-wise. Just it did not do what we were hoping that it would do. We don't do as well with games that do an awful lot of players gain narrative control. And I know that sounds rude, like I want all the narrative control myself, but it's more like when you roll and the game says, okay, well, you get what you want, but you also get to make changes to the scene. You get to make changes to what's happening. You get to decide how to interpret things. My players often get choice paralysis. They don't like that. Or in the midst of combat, they just want to know how much damage am I doing, as opposed to, okay, but then I also, my gun jams, but the clip falls out and it hits a book and the book falls off the shelf and inside there's a key and now I can get out of the room, but my gun is jammed and I didn't do any damage. But they're the ones who had to come up with that instead of me. It's just not their thing, right? They just don't like that. But I didn't really gel with the system. I didn't like the dice. Anyway, so that one goes away. Avatar Legends. Avatar Legends was a game that we enjoyed playing, and a lot of that was the characters and the world that it was based on. The system was okay up until the point where we got into combat, and the combat is awful. I will admit it here now. What they were trying to do with the combat was kind of neat. They had some design philosophies that I very much agree with. Things like you shouldn't have like magic points for your bending, and you shouldn't have like benders shouldn't necessarily be the be all in it, but just the idea of like you had to choose whether you were, like you had the, before every round, were you maneuvering, it was messy. It was not fun to play for us. And also we've discovered that Powered by the Apocalypse games tend to be ones where, since there isn't enough customization for characters for my players to bite into, I don't really like it as much. For shorter campaigns, it's great. Like, I had a lot of fun with our Blades in the Dark campaign that I was a player in. Like, it was fun. But, like, it didn't feel like I could craft a character in the same granular way that I could using the Storyteller system. But there's a lot of games on this shelf, and a lot of games that we have digitally instead. And Legend of the Five Rings. So we had L5R as an option, and this was originally the Cyberpunk game that we were going to do. We were going to do Neo Rokugan, and there were some things in this book that I really liked, but there were two things that held us back. One was the fact that most of the abilities in this were just like dice tricks. They weren't particularly interesting powers. It was just ways to like manipulate things. It also had custom dice, and the stuff that came along with that, like narrative control. But then also, even though I know they've tried, and even though I don't think that it's as bad as it once was, and I think that there's that it's still a very worthwhile game for people to look into, it was not a stream appropriate game. What I mean by stream appropriate game is that if you're at home with your friends privately, you can go to some lengths to experiment and to do things that can toe acceptable lines of conduct, and it's easier to pull back from. When you're streaming, that shit's permanent. It's live, it's out there, and it's forever. So imagine 4 white people talking about how they have to maintain their honor through the Bushido code, and it starts getting a little bit iffy because of the audience that we have and because of the way that this game is openly streamed. We recognize that all 4 of us are Caucasian. We recognize that that is just something that it has a different look, and so this game did not necessarily have stuff that we wanted. But yeah, as I was mentioning, and as Kate is saying here, they're adding more classes and movesets to the cards, right? It's just, we want to do stuff that isn't focused on combat, but still has systems and cool mechanics behind it. We want, if they're going to have supernatural abilities, they want supernatural abilities that aren't just to defeat an enemy through violence. And Daggerheart, despite being thrown out there as a narrative-forward game, and it can be, absolutely, most of the mechanics in here, like if I go and I dive into this, like, I love the packaging. I think that the fact that I think the cards are sliding out. Like, this box where the cards are kept is pretty cool. Yeah, because some of the cards are still, like, we actually still have a bunch of the cards set aside in decks for the characters that we were playing for our practice sessions. But, like, I'm pulling a few cards at random here. So here, for a Bard, Troubadour, Foundation. So what you can do here, you're a gifted performer. Describe how you perform for others. You can play each song once per long rest. Relaxing song, you and all allies within close range clear a hit point. Epic song, make a target within close range temporarily vulnerable. Or heartbreaking song, you and all allies within close range gain a hope. There's literally only one of these that has a non-combat mechanic, and it's just gain a resource. It doesn't have that kind of interesting interplay that we'd be looking for. I'm going to randomly cut. Seraph, Divine Wielder. When you have an equipped weapon with a range of melee or very close, or once per long rest, touch a creature and clear 2 hit points or 2 stress for them. Now here's an example of a card that is specific. This is Syndicate Mastery for a rogue. So this is not necessarily combat. You can use your Contacts Everywhere feature 3 times per session. The following options are added to the list of benefits you can choose when you use that feature. When you mark 1 or more hit points, they can rush out to shield you, reducing the hit points marked, or when you make a presence roll in conversation, they back you up, you can roll a d20 as your hope die. So, despite the fact that this is supposedly dealing with allies, one of the abilities is combat, and it's literally just you reduce your hit points by 1, and one of them is that you get to change a die when you're making a presence roll from a d12 to a d20. This isn't an interesting character choice. These are dice tricks. And dice tricks are not as fun for us. So it is not that we're never going to play Daggerheart, and it is not that Daggerheart is a bad game. And it certainly isn't that we aren't even considering Daggerheart in the future for like an actual long-running campaign as opposed to a short one because of the way that they're planning on building it out. But it doesn't have the same kind of character customization and abilities that we enjoy. So we slot that away. So that's where we come down. I would really like to find other games that have elegant systems that also have really interesting stuff for players to do that do not involve violence or specifically just dice trick. Dice tricks can be fun, right? Excellencies are dice tricks in Exalted. That's what they are. You get to have more dice, you get to change the number that you're trying to reach on those dice. And that can be a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. But there isn't a whole lot of flavor in that. We need flavor. And we want it to not just be, hey, I have this ability, which means I get a +5 on this roll forever. That's not nearly as interesting as something that can be adaptable or changed or can really sort of tweak things compared to, I'm going to ask this person a question and I get to find out what's the thing that currently stresses him out the most. Or I get to decide after sitting and concentrating for a moment whether or not undertaking this particular journey is in line with the idea of what heaven thinks is important. Like, those are cool abilities that give players very individual and very special ways to spotlight, as opposed to just being like, in this particular combat, I was better than before. So it's not necessarily like I also love violence in terms of conflict resolution. Like, I think combat is a ton of fun, and I want interesting combat tricks as well. I just don't want it to be like, oh, so the vast majority of the stuff that I have available to me is either combat related or dice tricks, because that's the easy thing to design for. In Daggerheart, there are plenty of abilities, not plenty, but there are some abilities which have things that aren't necessarily combat related, but it's literally just like gain a hope. Well, there are other ways to gain hope. I want to be able to do something that nobody can do. I mean, mech on mech combat is fun. Like, I'm not against that at all. I think that you can do some really cool stuff, especially in universes where mech combat is a thing. But so Requiem saying, like, I get a +5 on this roll versus I get to hit this guy so hard that I instill a positive intimacy towards me. That is something that I think is more interesting for us as players. That's the part that's cool. KFF just sent me something. Or no, it's in the random room on our Discord. So I'm going to read this out loud. The real problem with D&D's contemporary culture of play is that it's basically a worse version of what Paranoia was doing 40 years ago. It's a faux pas for players to display knowledge of the mechanics, and the GM is expected to maintain an elaborate kayfabe where they merely pretend to be moderating a game with rules while actually doing something completely different, and they're not even allowed to kill players with orbital laser strikes for talking back. Like, I'm not keen on any framing of play where the GM is expected to do literally 100% of the work of making the game happen. But it seems to me that if you're going to do that anyway, the GM being both allowed and encouraged to kill you with lasers whenever they want is only fair compensation. So, I did play a bunch of Paranoia back in the day, and Paranoia as a game has a very specific requirement, or at least it used to, which is that players aren't allowed to demonstrate knowledge of the rules. Because the rules are outside their clearance, so they're not allowed to know them. Even though there's nothing stopping you from going into the book and reading it, and it kind of even encourages you to do it, but you're not allowed to say it, because if you at one point ever argue with the game master about a ruling, game master can be like, how do you know what the rules are? And then you lose a clone, which I love. I do think that there is benefits to presenting options to groups where you have a more communal storytelling thing in terms of narrative control. But I think that a lot of the reasons why those are popular these days is because it takes pressure off storytellers and game masters and dungeon masters. And that seems to be where a lot of the money is going. D&D loves prefab adventures. They love having modules that you can run, and it's because it takes a lot of the work off the DM's plate. It puts it on the writers. Narrative control says the DM doesn't have to decide what's happening all the time. The players get to also share some of that burden. And I think that there's some value in that. I think that that can be great, because the truism is that for a lot of gaming groups, people don't want to be the storyteller. They don't want to have all of that responsibility. So offloading that responsibility can be good. But I also think that there's something lost in there sometimes, in that what you're essentially doing now is saying, now everybody has to share that load instead of focusing on what they want to focus on. I like games where the players get to focus on playing their character and having their character move about in that world, instead of also needing to shoulder responsibility for the rest of the world itself. And I think that, unfortunately, too much reliance on this sort of thing means that you can run into situations where people don't try to take that next step into creating their own stories. It becomes easy to just say, okay, well, I don't have to learn how to improvise because the game does it for me, or the players do it for me. And we see that even with some content creators. Ginny D has spoken in the past about how she likes to do a ton of prep and she doesn't like improvising. And the reality is you can get better at improvising if you do it. And if you don't do it, you won't get better. So I think that it's the sort of thing that should be balanced. But yes. So KFF, yeah, the average perception of it being an elaborate kayfabe is spot on. Yeah, I would agree. But a lot of that is also coming from actual plays and their popularity. This is getting into the Matt Mercer effect, and to a certain degree also the Brendan Lee Mulligan effect. You just don't necessarily want to put too much focus on the DM as the be-all and end-all. I don't like when people spotlight just them, and I think that they would agree with me. Making it saying that Critical Role is a success because of Matt Mercer, or Dimension 20 is a success because of Brendan Lee Mulligan, ignores the work put in by other people. And then it means that home games put way too much pressure on the storyteller. So, there's that. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for coming by. We went a little bit over what a standard clinic hours is. In a little under 2 hours. You can head over to Pinky Pact over at twitch.tv/Pinky Pact. Erwin will be running her game then. Sorry that there was no Datafall today. There will be Datafall next week, but as a reminder for people who may not have been here for the beginning of the stream, who might not have seen it on the Discord, we will be starting an hour earlier than we normally do for the next 2 weeks because we have to end an hour earlier. So thus the trade-off that we have. It's just the deal that we have to deal with for the next 2 weeks. So just please keep that in mind. Coming up in the next week, I know I said that I was going to stream this week, but then I actually left the province for a little while, so that didn't end up happening. I will try to get in something this week, though. Scott, are you streaming this week on Tuesday? Friday? Weekend? But if, by the way, you have any of these suggestions that you're posting in chat, throw them in the Discord as well. I don't always see everything that goes in chat. If I'm talking, I'm not necessarily reading all the aspects of chat, but throw them in the Discord because people would love to see links and stuff like that. So Scott will be playing a mystery game on Tuesday, so hopefully we'll see some stuff on Tuesday there. If I'm streaming, it will likely be either on Monday or on Wednesday, possibly Thursday. Actually, more likely on Wednesday or Thursday. We'll see, but I'll post on the Discord. We did some Zelda randomizer before. We'll see what we're going to do soon. Friday, there will be Punchy 00 Punch playing 007 First Light. That'll be over on twitch.tv/Elizabeth A. Neal. But otherwise, we will see you next time. And remember that, look, it is often the hardest thing that you can possibly do, but it is also often the best thing. Is that if you're having a problem at your game, or anywhere really, just use your word hole. See you next time.